How much would you pay to break out of a dead-end job and get into another one that makes you almost six figures? You see, most people feel stuck, believing that the only way out is years of schooling or expensive degrees. I know I did. And it can be really discouraging when you have to spend months searching for jobs and applying and then hearing crickets. Take Richard, for example, a college dropout stuck in a job that he was drained by.
So I got to the point where I was supposed to get a promotion twice, but because that person either didn't transfer out or they didn't retire, I was stuck there.
Well, plot twist. Richard is now actually a successful fintech professional, and he's crushing it in tech sales, all from the comfort of his home office, or maybe even a beach chair. I don't judge. And yes, he's now making over six figures, and he's even coaching others on how to break into this profitable field. So, how did he do it? Was it just luck? No. So in this video, I will show you the exact step-by-step process that he followed so that you can apply that too. No degree needed, I promise, and it can start with one simple decision. Look, like many of us, Richard followed what he thought was the right path. A lot of us have, right? Coming from a modest background, he felt that getting a steady job was the only option, but his experience in college wasn't what he expected.
I come from a very low income family. So when it came to any education, I'll be honest, I was essentially a college dropout. I remember right after high school, I went to college for one semester, and then I stopped, then I went again, and that's when after that second semester, I decided that's when I'll leave.
So after leaving college and taking on a few low-income jobs in restaurants, he found himself in a position that many can relate to. He settled for a steady job in financial services, hoping that maybe over time it would lead somewhere. But as time passed, it became clear that this wasn't a career with growth. It was just a job, and quite a draining one. Every morning, Richard would wake up dreading the day ahead. Promotions were rare, and advancement felt like an empty promise.
I got to the point where I was supposed to get a promotion twice, but because that person either didn't transfer out or they didn't retire, I was stuck there.
Now let me know, does this sound familiar? Working day after day with no light at the end of the tunnel? I really encourage you to take a moment and think, what is one thing that is holding you back from changing your career? Drop it in the comments below and let's see how we can tackle it together. Because that's exactly where Richard found himself. He realized that he was on a path going nowhere, and the thought of staying stuck in the same role day after day was something that he couldn't ignore anymore. He knew that he needed a change.
I realized every day, I was thinking to myself, am I going to do this every day? And it was just, when I knew that I was waking, thinking like that every day, that's my breaking point.
And then one night, while searching for a way out, he stumbled across something that seemed too good to be true: tech sales. A career path with growth, high demand, and no degree requirements. And then he actually realized that it was not the first time someone had mentioned this to him.
Yeah, so it's really funny. So during that time where I was trying to rethink my whole career, I was visiting some family, and a relative of mine, he was friends with a lot of people working in the tech space. And that's when he mentioned tech sales. And at the time, I'm just thinking to myself, what the heck is tech sales? Once again, I've been in one industry for over a decade, so I only knew one thing. So after that, that's when I went home, did some research. And it's funny, I always wanted to go into tech. I just was not a technical person when it came to coding or anything like that. And I found out it was a booming industry. And, one thing that I really loved was it didn't require a degree. And I was going to go, as I mentioned earlier, I left school itself, right? So I don't want to go back to that again.
So that's really where Richard's journey truly begins. He identified tech sales as his way out of the 9-to-5 grind, but it wasn't luck. It was a strategic move. So I want to walk you now through each step that he took so that you can see how it's possible for anyone to make the same change. And the first step is absolutely critical. Richard knew that to break free from the rat race, he needed to identify a career field that had two key characteristics: high demand which oftentimes also translates into high pay and low barriers to entry. That's when he was open to explore tech sales. If for you it's something else, that's absolutely fine, but you do want to look for those two criteria at least. And maybe if you are interested in looking into tech sales, let's talk a little bit about what it is and why it is such a hot field. Basically, tech sales professionals are the connection point, the bridge between really, really nice cutting-edge technology companies and their customers. They're responsible for understanding complex technology products and then explaining how those solutions can solve real business problems. And believe me, after spending almost 11 years in technology, I can tell you that the demand for tech sales roles has grown so much that even big names like Yelp, for example, have 45% of their total headcount in sales. Now, unlike many traditional career paths, tech sales did not require a degree. What mattered was the ability to learn fast, build relationships, and close deals. But Richard didn't have all those skills yet. That's when he knew that he had to find a way to quickly learn the ropes.
I'm just thinking to myself, what the heck is tech sales? Once again, I've been in one industry for over a decade, so I only knew one thing. So after that, that's when I went home, did some research. And it's funny, I always wanted to go into tech. I just was not a technical person when it came to coding or anything like that. And I found out it was a booming industry. And, one thing that I really loved was it didn't require a degree. And I was get-go, as I mentioned earlier, I left school itself.
So he started applying to jobs, but what happened next might seem familiar.
I knew, so it's funny. At first I didn't know what to look for, but because I thought you could just apply and just showcase the skills. But what happened was, I remember when I was able to get some interviews, I did not understand the whole tech sales language at all. And that's when I had to take a step back, be humble, and I started looking. It's funny, I went against my education way, right? And I started looking at...
And that's when he found Course Careers.
So I started researching courses, and that's when I stumbled upon Course Careers. And I took the leap, researched it, looked at all the testimonials, and even read as much as comments as I can, reviews, watched every interview they had on their YouTube channel. And I took the leap of faith and purchased it.
Now, Richard signed up for the tech sales course on Course Careers, which was designed specifically to fast-track people into tech sales careers. So instead of spending years on a degree, he found a targeted program that focused on the exact skills that companies were looking for. Okay, that sounds great. What made you choose that as your path to learning tech sales? What was the decision-making point?
Yeah, so the good thing was when it comes to any courses, I've seen courses, the prices are super high or super low. I felt that it was a great entry point on the pricing, so that was really good. And then the second one is just the amount of information that it provides based off of what I read. And even he offered a small, 15-20 minute, I believe, something around that time, intro video to showcase what they have and what they're offering. But that was really it.
And again, if you're in this place yourself, you want to make sure you are very, very clear on what are the critical skills that a company hiring for the role that you're pursuing would be looking for. You will not be able to get a job unless you check at least the most important skill set that is required for that position. So basically, Course Careers gave Richard everything that he needed: the practical, hands-on experience with sales tools, learning how to build client relationships, and how to close deals in real-world situations.
I gained those skills through the course, and when it came down to the conversations, I was able to respond and articulate it in a way to where tech sales or the hiring manager, recruiter, whoever it is, they understood what I was talking about.
So over the span of just a few weeks, Richard gained all the critical skills that he needed to break into tech sales. So I think the key takeaway for you here is that Richard didn't waste time or money on a degree. He focused on developing the right skills in a high demand field. And thankfully, we are able to partner with Course Careers today and give you guys a really amazing deal. You can start the free tech sales introduction course with Course Careers now. The link is going to be in the description down below. And you can get $50 off the full course. And if you're watching the video before Black Friday, they are running an amazing offer these days where you can get 20% off all of their courses between November 28th and December 2nd, 2024. So now that you know the first step to take, let's move to the second one because this is so critical. And that's because skills alone weren't going to get Richard noticed. He had no previous experience in sales or tech, so he needed to find a way to stand out and fast. And that's where personal branding comes into play and why it is so important.
So I remember after passing the course, completing and everything, I didn't have that much. I was just submitting resumes. And it's funny, I didn't even have a LinkedIn. And I remember I was just submitting applications. And I was thinking to myself, why am I not getting interviews?
And now you're probably wondering, how do you build a personal brand in a completely new industry? And I get that. That was also one of Richard's biggest challenges, figuring out how his past experience could apply to tech sales. But he quickly realized that every job teaches valuable skills. We call those transferable skills, but it's basically the same thing. What have you learned in your previous experience, in your previous career that could be relevant and representative for the new career path that you're choosing, for the new direction that you want to go down on?
As I mentioned, I was working at a bank, and banks, they have very outdated technology. I could definitely admit to that. I know some of the software they had there, I was able to carry over since they use it in tech sales. The second one is the style of selling. So that's really big. When I was a banker, I sold a different way, and just to learn that style made a huge game changer.
Now here comes the next challenge. And Richard found that really quickly. And that's the fact that you have the skills is not enough. You need to bypass the initial recruiter screening. So actually, Richard started optimizing his LinkedIn profile and his resume using the exact keywords from job descriptions to make sure that he would show up in searches. And by aligning his profile with the language used in the job descriptions, Richard made sure that he wouldn't get filtered out by the applicant tracking systems or missed by recruiters who were scanning for specific skills. And here I have a very interesting story to share with you, actually. Many years ago, back when I was working in tech, I was looking to hire for a data scientist. And for the job application that we posted, over 2,000 people applied. And funnily enough, only 2 out of 2,000 had the word data scientist clearly mentioned in their resume. Can you imagine that? You apply for a data scientist role, but your resume doesn't say you're a data scientist. So take a moment and go check your resume and your LinkedIn profile and see, what do they say? What are you showing yourself to be specialized in? What are you branding yourself as?
There has to be a science to this. And that's when I started researching and found out about applicant tracking system and the other tools that recruiters use. And that's when I learned to properly optimize my resume and LinkedIn, and everything started skyrocketing.
And I see a lot of people making this mistake where their resume and LinkedIn profile are just a list of their past jobs. Instead, what Richard did really well, and I think you should consider doing that too, is to use these tools as a way to market yourself as the ideal candidate for the role that you're applying for. Now, in Richard's case, he highlighted transferable skills that he had from his previous experience in financial services, and then added relevant keywords and then showcased his potential in tech sales. And don't tell me that you have no transferable skills. Literally anyone has something. Let's take an example. Let's think of a waiter who wants to get into sales. Well, they can say, we were promoting our combo meal, which allowed us to increase sales by 40% that quarter. Boom. Instead of focusing on what he didn't have or hadn't done, Richard emphasized the skills and experience that he had that were relevant to the job. and you can do that too. Okay, so what happened after you optimized your LinkedIn profile and your resume?
Yeah, so so within a 70-day time frame after completing the course, I was able to get 16 first-round interviews, right? And this was, I would say, about 2-3 weeks after I completed the course.
Now, you see, Richard's approach wasn't just about applying for jobs. It was about making sure that recruiters found him first. And by tailoring his LinkedIn profile and his resume with the right keywords, he bypassed the traditional screening process and he put himself straight in front of the right people. And of course, he followed up a lot. He says it himself. After applying to a job, he was researching and reaching out to the recruiter, to the hiring manager, and to anyone else who was involved in the interview process. How did he know that? LinkedIn Pro. I know it's not free, but I think it's worth it if you're on this path.
Yeah, I was able to get 16 first-round interviews, and then at the end of the day, I was able to receive 5 job offers. And yeah, the great thing about that was I was able to position myself. That's through the resume and also my LinkedIn profile to showcase, hey, I'm that person you have to hire. I'm a valuable asset to your company.
So at this point, Richard had recruiters coming to him, but landing the interview was only one step. What mattered now was taking control of the conversation from the very first moment. And that's where step 3 comes in. Is there something that you did? Because you said that you got 5 job offers, so you must be doing something different there too.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is controlling the interview if you can from the beginning. So it's kind of, when you walk in a room, here's an analogy. When you walk in a room and the first person starts talking, they set the tone of the interview. So if you could set the tone of the interview in the beginning.
Because what I really liked about Richard's approach is that he wasn't only answering questions passively in the interview, it was about him leading the conversation. He asked the right questions and he positioned himself as someone who could solve the company's problems, not just another candidate looking for a job.
What I usually do is whenever I get any interview, I'm the first one that would start talking. And I'll start talking to them like a regular friend, human being. Just like, hey, how's your day? And I keep chatting until they stop me and until they say, hey, all right, well, I'm going to ask you questions now. So control the narrative from the beginning. And that's how you are able to control all the way to the end of the process.
And I love Richard's tip here because by owning the conversation early on, by the time the discussion shifts to salary, Richard wasn't, another candidate. He was there as the right candidate. They already were convinced of his value.
Remember, you have a skill set. Everyone has a skill set. It doesn't matter what it is. One, it's your goal to articulate it properly to the interviewer or the hiring team. And 2, you want to showcase that you have the skills. And that's where the confidence comes up. Because at the end of the day, that's where you have the capability. And this is so big for people. You have the capability to actually negotiate your contract, maybe even get a sign-in bonus, is because you were able to showcase how valuable you are as a person. Remember, you're going through all those interview rounds and they selected you. They're not going to re-waste the resources to hire someone else.
Yeah, I think this is great advice. And this is something that anyone can apply. Richard's success wasn't about knowing his worth. It was about showing it and owning it, embodying it, right? By taking control of the interview and positioning himself as a valuable asset, he made salary negotiations just feel like a natural next step. It was not a battle. And Richard's journey is proof that it's possible to go from feeling stuck in a job that you really dread to thriving in a career that gives you freedom and financial success. But his story is not unique. It's really very replicable blueprint. First, he identified a high demand field. In his case, tech sales. In yours, it can be anything. And then he equipped himself with the right skills. Then he built a personal brand that showcased his strengths and positioned him in a way that allowed him to bypass recruiter screenings. And then finally, Richard mastered negotiation, taking control of the interview and proving his value to secure a six-figure salary. And his journey did not stop with landing the first job. He actually landed several, but in the time since he started, he's already received a promotion to senior sales representative, increasing his base salary to over six figures with even higher commission potential. And the future looks bright, I believe, because many tech sales professionals go on to become sales managers, directors, or even start their own companies. Now look, Richard's success didn't come from luck, as you can see. It came from strategy, preparation, and his willingness to take control of his career. And the same opportunity is waiting for anyone, you included. The only question is, are you ready to take the first step? If you are, check out Course Careers. Even if you're not keen to go into tech sales, they have lots of other courses that have helped hundreds of others to get hired. And now it's your turn. Alright, you guys, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed this new format. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Like this video if you did, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so, and also share with anyone in your circle of friends or family who might be looking to change careers, and maybe tech sales could be something that they might find interesting. Until next time, I suggest you go ahead and watch this video over here, and I'll see you soon. Bye!